Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Rhonda Farrell, the CEO of Global Innovation Strategies, bringing you week 20 of Spotlight on What's Next. This week, we're talking about the emerging leadership reality. Influence is becoming infrastructure. We've been talking about this transition for multiple weeks now, and I just want to give you a heads up with regards to the topic of discussion today. So we're going to begin today with across government AI, cybersecurity, defense, healthcare, energy, education, and enterprise systems. A major leadership shift is accelerating. Organizations are no longer competing only through products, services, operational efficiency, or even technology capability alone. They are increasingly competing through their ability to shape standards, ecosystems, talent pipelines, governance models, infrastructure priorities, market expectations, and public trust. In other words, strategic influence is becoming a competitive operating layer, and AI acceleration is amplifying this reality dramatically. Why? Because ecosystems are converging faster, decision time frames are compressing, standards are still very much evolving, governance is still maturing, and industries are actively being reshaped in real time. The organizations influencing these structural changes early gain disproportionate advantage later on. So the pattern that leaders must recognize is that historically, influence was often treated as branding, lobbying, marketing, public relations, or executive visibility. But in 2026, influence has become operational. Why? Because operations now operate inside deeply interconnected systems. AI supply chains, cloud infrastructure dependencies, semiconductor ecosystems, workforce networks, standards bodies, cybersecurity alliances, public-private partnerships, regulatory frameworks, digital trust environments, and increasingly, organizations that do not help shape systems become constrained by systems designed by others. So this is the new strategic reality we are living in. So the next leadership shift is that we need to be making a critical transition from scaling organizations to reshaping environments. And they are asking a completely different question, not how do we compete more effectively, but how do we help shape the ecosystem where competition occurs? Because influence now affects access, partnerships, standards, trust, adoption, resilience, visibility, and long-term positioning. And in an AI-driven world, ecosystems increasingly determine velocity. What strategic influence actually looks like these days? It's not control, but it is the ability to shape direction without forcing compliance, building trust across networks, influencing standards before they solidify, aligning ecosystems around shared priorities, and creating gravitational pull around ideas, systems, and leadership models. Strategic influence allows organizations to attract stronger partners, accelerate adoption, shape policy conversations, increase ecosystem resilience, and extend impact beyond organizational boundaries. Influence is where expansion becomes environmental shaping. So our 4 strategic influence moves for week 20 are as follows. Number 1, influence through ecosystem participation. Organizations can no longer operate as siloed entities. We need to increasingly be participating in standards development, industry alliances, public-private initiatives, AI governance coalitions, academic partnerships, and cross-sector innovation ecosystems. Why? Because participation creates visibility into emerging risks, Future directions, policy evolution, and market movement. The future will increasingly belong to ecosystem participants, not ecosystem observers. Number two, shape trust before regulation forces it. AI governance, cybersecurity accountability, digital ethics, and operational transparency are all evolving rapidly. Organizations waiting for regulations alone to define standards are already behind. Leaders are proactively shaping ethical operating models, transparency standards, governance maturity, responsible AI frameworks, and trust-centered operating systems, because trust leadership creates strategic influence long before regulation catches up. And organizations trusted early often become the reference point others follow. Number three, build influence through capability multiplication. One of the largest strategic shifts occurring right now is that influential organizations do not simply scale internally, they help others scale. This includes developing weak workforce ecosystems, enabling supplier capability, mentoring entrepreneurs, supporting industry modernization, advancing standards communities, and building shared infrastructure models. Why? Because capability multiplication expands ecosystem strength. Organizations that elevate others often increase their own strategic relevance simultaneously. Number four, align influence to long-term system stability. Not all influence creates resilience. Some influence creates fragility, over centralization, ecosystem dependency, misinformation campaigns, governance erosion, or short-term acceleration without safeguards. The most high-performing leaders are asking, does our influence strengthen trust? Does it improve resilience? Does it create sustainable alignment? Does it reduce systemic friction? And does it help ecosystems adapt responsibly? Because sustainable influence strengthens systems, not just positioning. So why does this matter so much now? Well, the 2026 leadership environment is increasingly shaped by AI acceleration, geopolitical competition, infrastructure constraints, workforce transformation, cybersecurity escalation, energy dependency, and rapidly evolving governance expectations. And at the same time, institutions are being reevaluated. Trust expectations are increasing, and stakeholders expect greater transparency, accountability, and responsiveness. This creates a defining leadership reality. Organizations that shape ecosystems responsibly will gain disproportionate long-term advantage. Organizations that fail to engage internally may lose influence over standards, struggle to attract partnerships, become operationally constrained, and react to systems instead of shaping them. The differentiator will not simply be capability. The differentiator will be strategic influence with disciplined stewardship. So our week 20 reflection is for us to take a moment this week to consider, where does our organization currently influence systems beyond itself? Where are we benefiting from ecosystems we are not helping strengthen? What standards, governance models, or partnerships are shaping our future? Where could stronger ecosystem participation increase resilience or opportunity? Are we shaping trust or reacting to trust expectations? Because these are not simply visibility questions, they are strategic influence signals. So our week 20 actions are to choose one ecosystem your organization depends upon: industry, workforce, technology, policy, infrastructure, academia, or partnership based. And then ask, how are we contributing to its long-term strength? Where could we shape standards instead of waiting for them? What partnerships should we deepen? What capability could we help multiply? How can our influence strengthen trust and resilience simultaneously? So let's take one intentional step forward for ecosystem leadership, because the organizations that lead in 2026 will not simply scale internally, they will help shape the environments where the future is being built. So our closing thoughts for today is trust creates confidence, traction creates movement, transformation creates capability, trajectory creates direction, endurance sustains stability, and expansion creates opportunity. But influence is what determines whether organizations shape the future or are shaped by it. In the leadership environment of 2026, the organizations that lead will not simply operate within ecosystems, they will help architect what those ecosystems become. Again, this is Dr. Rhonda Farrow, the CEO of Global Innovation Strategies, wrapping up week 20 of Spotlight on What's Next 2026, the emerging leadership reality. Influence is becoming infrastructure.